Hey folks, so this project that I'm taking on is a sort of twofer. And basically, that's a Canadian way of saying getting two things done when you were only really intending on getting one thing done. So I knew I needed to replace the vent cap for my black tank. It was quite messed up, and we got some water in the area underneath where that black tank vent is in one of our storage cabinets. And, you know, I've been putting it off for a while. I knew I needed to do it, so don't do what I did. Spend the $8.50 and just get the thing done so that you don't have to replace a floor later on. Cheap insurance, right? So in this project, what I'm going to do is replace the vent cap, and I'm going to install a solar panel kit at the same time. So what I chose to use is a 40-watt solar panel kit made by Coleman that includes about 20 feet of wiring that's jacketed already and plugs into a male-female plug and a charge controller. So you can do this without a kit. You can do it by just purchasing one or two solar panels, depending on your needs. If you're going to do off-grid stuff, you're going to have to do some calculations, but ballpark, you'll need at least 100 watts worth of solar panel. You'll be a lot better if you go with 150 or 100 or 200 watts worth of solar panels. And they can be installed in the same way. You may wish to go with a series of smaller panels as well. You know, do some research and decide what the right fit is for you. But regardless, this video will help you figure out how to install it in such a way that you will not have to run new cabling down into a new hole in the roof of your RV, and you can double seal it and make sure that you're not going to have additional water intrusions. So first thing you need is that kit. Second thing you need is 25-foot spools, two different spools of two different colors of 14 gauge primary wire. You're also going to need about a 10-pack of butt connectors. You're going to need a wire stripper, crimper tool, just sort of like your basic thing, nothing too fancy. You're going to need two ring clamps, and you're going to need some electrical tape. So the basic design of the thing is you're going to run the cables down the existing hole for the vent cap after you remove the old vent cap. Then you are going to run the cabling. You're going to decide where you want the charge controller, ideally as close to your power center as possible. Then you're going to run that charge controller from the output of that charge controller to the battery end of it. You're going to run primary wire, one color for negative, one color for positive, through the main access, which is usually like a hole in your floor. You're going to run it through that hole. You might have to fish it through with a coat hanger like I did in a couple spots, and then run it through the jacket as much as possible for your main power cable all the way to the front to the battery. You're going to then put your ring clamps on and put them onto the terminals of the battery, and once that's finished, you have a solar install. So hope this video is helpful to you. I look forward to your comments and suggestions, and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome back to RV with E. Today we got two projects and we're going to merge them into one. For Christmas last year, my dad bought me this really cool 40-watt solar panel with a charge controller, and I've been setting it up on and off at different parks we've been going to. But honestly, it's kind of annoying me because I have to continually set it up and tear it down. And, you know, I don't want to cut a new hole in the roof to run the thing. So I'm pretty much stuck unless I install it permanently. So what we're going to do today is install the solar panel permanently. And the excuse to do so is replacing our plumbing vent kit. So these things, you've really got to keep an eye on them. When they fail, they can fail very, very secretly. So this guy cracked along the bottom edge here, and that was enough in a torrential downpour to get some water inside the unit and underneath my brand new floors, and it was a pain to clean up and dry out. So, you know, this $9 Canadian part is a much better solution than rebuilding my floor again. So since we're going to do this, I've already got the vent cap off, and right next to the vent cap is a nice little hole where I can easily feed the structure, the wiring for my solar panel. So what we're going to do is first install these little L brackets onto the solar panel. Okay, so the solar panel sits just off the ground like that. Water can run underneath it. You can see that there's going to be a space there. Water will be able to run underneath it. And then we're going to run our wiring down through that vent hole. And that way, when we seal it all up with Dicor, we will be able to have a permanently installed solar panel that will do its job very nicely. We're back on the roof, and first I want to start you off with just a glimpse of the difference, right? Beat up, you can see all of the cracks all the way along there. You can see that there's some separation happening there, and a nice solid one. Now these guys are pretty cheap, right? But they do need to be replaced, and if you don't replace them, you're begging for a visit. This is the putty stuff that goes down under it to help seal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have that much space, if you can see it, and there's a little bit of give around there. We are going to feed our wires for our solar panel down through that opening, so that when we seal the whole thing, we are also going to be sealing in our wires for our solar panel. Before that, we're going to clean it. This is a little quick and dirty, but I'm going to spray the thing with brake cleaner. Okay, and wipe it up with some paper towel so that we get all the sticky crap off, so that we can get to work. Okay, you can see that it's now all cleaned up, and we've got this little slot here. Okay, the pipe should move a little bit freely back and forth within this. This is a little gasket, so we're gonna have to be really careful to cover this with lots and lots of lap sealant, and this is kind of pulled up over the years. So, you know, just to be safe, I'm going to run a lot of lap sealant around here. This is our, you know, El Cheapo Coleman solar panel, but this guy's reasonably waterproof, reasonably water resistant. So to make sure that we're nicely locked in here, what I'm gonna do, I've installed these brackets already. I'm going to take this cable here, as you can see, and simply just feed it down here. So now I'm feeding it into that compartment, and I'm just going to dry fit everything. Right? We want to make sure everything's going to fit tightly, snugly, properly. Okay, and I'm going to leave a little bit of slack there. I'll probably staple this down. I might staple some of this roof, but we're going to try to actually avoid punching holes in it, so I'm going to take that back. But this is how much is left, and this is what it's going to look like when it's dry fit into place. Now again, like, you're seeing the cable here, and you're not going to see the cable when I'm done, because it will be very snugly fastened to the roof. You'll see that I've also arranged these L brackets so that there is some water clearance. This guy, each one is progressively a little bit lower, leaving me more clearance at the front, less clearance at the back, allowing the water to simply run off the panel while it's on the roof. Since you're doing the vent at the same time, you're going to steal a little bit of this putty and put a little bit under each one. Okay, this will not only help hold the solar panel in place while you are placing it, but it will seal the screw and prevent leaks. So you see this is run tight inside the vent. Again, we're going to dry fit everything. And most important thing, now that I've got that run down, is we're going to grab our tester that usually comes with a solar panel kit. We're just going to make sure we're getting some signal down there, because if we're getting signal, then we're good to go. It would be a real shame to do all of this stuff and not get signal. I can't see why I wouldn't be getting signal, but better to check. Okay, so along the vent pipe, there's this little, you know, interior trim piece. What I did is I pried this section away here with a screwdriver so that I could fish the wire down through into this bottom section, which I did. And as you can see there, I've got my tester plugged in and we're getting signal. So I can remove that. I'm going to push these back into place, hammer a couple of finishing nails into them later, but we're good to go. So we're going to seal everything up on the roof. Then we're going to check our connection again, and then we'll wire in the controller. So now we have our putty applied to the roof. of the vent cap, and we'll hook everything up there. And I just laid it into place. I put a little extra putty right here at the front where, you know, we really want to make sure this is sealed right around that, and kind of work it in with your hands. And then what I'm doing now is I'm placing the bolts into place. I've got one more bolt to put into place there. And once I'm done with those bolts, we will be ready to fasten this whole thing down. So you see that I've put some staples in there, you know, to each their own. Some people would not put staples in their EPDM roof. Personally, I put them in and then kind of gently hammer them in place. But I really feel like it's you know, cheap insurance to hold the cable into place. And so I'm going to go get my other nut driver, go get my lap sealant, and then we will finish it. Go over one more time. All right, and it looks like we're pretty solid. That putty's gonna hold things nicely in there. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're gonna glove up. We're gonna do our lap sealant. You're gonna need a 4-inch screw, and you're going to need your X-Acto knife, okay? So I always cut a pretty generous bead of this stuff, and we're gonna lay that generously over everywhere there's a roof intrusion. We're also going to have a look at you know, spots that we could lay some extra. Once you open the lap sealant, you're sort of stuck using it. So I'm gonna have a quick look around too and see if there's anywhere else that I really want to lay a bead of this stuff. You know, that way we can use up the whole bottle and make sure everything's nice and sealed. So next, you lay the die core. You don't want to go around and push everything down. Die core is self-leveling. Most important part of a self-leveling product is don't touch it, okay? Lay it on from the top and let it run itself down and cover all of this stuff, okay? So you can start here, work your way around from the top down, because it will naturally flow down. You're gonna take your time and make sure that it's done right. See, I've cut a nice big bead here. You know, don't be shy with this stuff. All right, so you can see with the die core, what I'm doing is basically just laying thick beads of it. And then I'm just gonna sit here for a sec and let the sun do its work, let this level itself out. And then I'm gonna lay one more bead around and another bead down here. So that's what it looks like after I drop the die core on it. It will level out as it dries a little bit more. I'm gonna go grab some lunch. Then I'm gonna come back and we'll do the inside work to make sure that we've got all of this buttoned down and ready to go. Now that you've run the whole thing, you're going to need to run some primary wire. If you're wondering, why can't I run Romex? Well, Romex is not at all suitable for 12-volt applications, so you're going to need primary wire. Personally, I like minimum 14 gauge. So again, if you're a novice at this, the higher the number, the thinner the cable. So 14 gauge is kind of a good happy medium, because this will be exposed to the elements. This guy here is 14 gauge. On the outside though, you'll see what I've done is I originally had it routed so I could plug it in and the charge controller would be in this access hatch, which required a shorter length of cable. So you'll see that here on my leads, on my battery leads, I've run an independent cable and butted them together so that this is my main cable and then the charge cable is separate. I'm going to keep this configuration for a couple of reasons. The biggest one being that my converter is pretty old and I don't want to bridge into the old converter if I don't have to. And for the sake of $10 of primary wire and 30 minutes of my time, I don't have to. The catch is that my original length of primary wire is not long enough. Now, I'm not going to waste primary wire, and I've got a whole bunch of butt connectors. So what I'm going to do is I am going to transition this wiring into new primary wire. I'm going to run one wire at a time to make sure that everything is nice and tight. And then if we look under here, okay, I'm just letting some water out right now. If we look under here, right there-ish, where are you? I'm going to run the wires into the unit and connect that extension to the charge controller. So next step, we're going to get our creeper out, do some work underneath, and we're going to run some new primary wires. And I'll out from the split box. What I'm doing from here is I loosened that tie, and I'm running, as you can see, this is our electrical conduit. I'm running these up inside the electrical conduit. I know that they're exposed down here. These primary wires are also exposed down here, and they've been fine. But around the underbelly, if we can, we'll tuck them all up inside this electrical conduit, and that conduit runs directly into the back of the electronic control center, which is exactly where we want to be in terms of installing our charge controller. So I'm going to keep running this wire. Each time I see one of these guys, I'm unzipping it. And then I'm going to pull this back. And every time I do this, I'm just going to run the wire up through here until I hit the next one, and I'm just going to keep going until I run out of wire, which won't be too long. If you're doing this yourself, your better bet is to leave the wire on the spool and to run the wire until you need to cut it using one nifty piece of wire. But again, I'm cheap, and here I am. So working with my new spool of wire here. I've got my black, which is going to become my negative, and my yellow, which is going to become my positive. So I'm working with the black reel right now, and we are going to use butt connectors. That is these guys. So very simple. There's holes, right? And you put the cable in one hole, you wind it up nice and tight, and then crimp it firmly. Put the other side in, crimp it firmly, and that gives you a union. And then you tape solidly with electrical tape. And it allows you to keep a straight line, unlike a Moret, which causes kind of a bit of a kink in it. These are not as good as Morets, and they're definitely not as good as soldering. But, if you don't want to be soldering near a gas line like me, then, hey, try these out. You can see that I've run my blackened wires up through here, fished them through with a coat hanger, which is exactly what I'm doing this time around as well. So I'm just going to reach back here and find that trusty coat hanger. And then pull it through. Into my coat hanger. I'm going to pull this thing through. Then we're going to be ready to wire the charge controller. Two more parts to the charge control system. This guy, which is the cable that plugs into your charge controller on the output side. And then this guy, which is your charge controller. So this, you can see that the load is 7 amp max. That's how much it can charge at. Its cutout is 14.2. So when your battery hits 14.2, you're done. And the cut in is when it drops below 13 volts, it'll charge the battery. So this guy, as you can see, is from the solar panel. So we're going to take the solar panel line we dropped and just plug it in here. And then we are going to take this guy here and plug it here. But before we do that, we have to wire this to the actual system. So you can see in here, I've got my yellow wires in. I've zip tied things up to keep it nice and clean. And I've built this little platform. So this little platform is going to be screwed down so the charge controller faces it. But before that, I'm just going to make sure everything fits in. And this time, because I may have to move this around, I'm going to use Morets because I don't really have any extra cable to play with. So I'm going to wire these guys up. Remembering my black in this case is negative, so black to black, and my yellow in this case is positive. So I'll wire these up, and then I'm going to secure them with lots and lots of electrical tape, again, just to make sure and hold them so that the tape adheres. Then I'm going to screw this in and fit it in that spot, and then I'll plug everything in, and when we get lights, we'll see if it works. To this little thing that I built. So we've talked about the charge controller before. This thing is just basically 2 pieces of hardwood ply that I had kicking around, and I just built it and screwed it together, put a couple hooks here to run the cables through. And I did this to make sure that I didn't have to drill into any of the walls. These guys are all just kind of paper thin. This is pretty much a utility compartment, so there was nowhere else that was good. And I didn't want to drill into here either because I wanted easy access to it, and I didn't want to straighten the cables. So I built this little platform, 2 pieces of wood. You could do it however you want, dealer's choice for your own rig. So here are the wires, my wires that were run into that red and black terminated piece that I told you about. And here is our input from our solar panel. So now we're going to take our input and connect it, and take our output and connect it. If we do this right, we'll get a little yellow flashing thing that says we're charging. And we'll see what happens. Look at that. We have a flashing yellow light. Right, here's what the final product looks like. I guess in the heat, I'm not really sure why the lap sealant kind of bubbled on me, but I'm sure it will get leveled out a little bit as time goes on. And then that guy did some good self-leveling over there. So by tomorrow, this should all be nice and solid, but the panel is very firmly on the roof. It is not going anywhere. Our wiring is done, our battery is charging, and we'll be able to roll down the road with this for years to come.